loop. Okay. All right. So let's go back to where we were over here. I bet I need to share my screen again. Hang on. Hang on. 1 second. Come on. And present now. Okay. And gosh, it makes me do a lot of stuff here. 2 seconds. Okay. All right. So back over here, and I know that's probably a bigger screen than it's covering more than you need, but I'm just going to keep it this way so I don't mess up anything. All right. So the next slide is services. And for this slide, I just want you to remember when we go to write services, we reflect services for each skill area. So if you talked about in the present levels, deficits in reading, in math, in writing, in language, in fine motor, we should see services for each of those skill areas. It doesn't necessarily equate to you're going to have a goal. You might have a goal about writing that both the occupational therapist and the speech therapist and the special educator all work on, because it's language, it's writing, it's the act of writing. So all three therapists might work on an area. So you might just have one goal that they're all working on, but you should have services from each of those areas to address that need. Does that make sense? Okay. Hearing nothing, I will move on. Okay, placement determination. This is another thing I just want to remind you about. You remember the continuation of the continuum of alternative placements, with general classroom being at the top, our least restrictive setting. We work our way down the continuum. We use an accept reject model. And we talk in the IEP as a team saying why each placement is either going to be rejected, or if we're at a point where we're ready to accept, we say why we accept the placement. And it's really not about what they need, but why they need the service in this particular setting. All right. Remember that there are some examples within your technical assistance guide that you can go back and look at if you don't remember quite how that looks. But basically, you just work your way down the continuum until you reach the placement you've accepted. You don't have to reject placements below the placement you've accepted, but you do have to work your way down. A lot of the time, most of your placements are going to be general education setting, or they're going to be the resource room setting, because they're actually driven by a percentage. They're driven by how much time the student is in the regular classroom or is pulled out. And remember, I showed you that little chart. There's a little formula, how you figure it out based on the number of minutes in the school week and all that. You won't need to know the formula for the quiz, but you do want to be familiar with how we document the placement determination. Okay? What questions do you have? Okay, you guys are being pretty nice to me so far. All right, let's just talk about ESY real quick as well, because that's the very last piece that ends the IEP in South Dakota. And the thing we remember about ESY is for maintenance. It's about keeping skills that we have gained during the school year. And we want to be sure when we go on an extended break that we don't have a significant regression that makes it really difficult to recoup those skills, or B, we're going to provide some ESY because we want to maintain a critical life skill. If they are just learning to do some element of self-care, perhaps it's buttoning and zipping, and they're just getting it, you don't want to stop that therapeutic intervention and have a long break over the summer where they don't practice it, because then they may lose it. Or again, the establishment of emerging skills. If they're just starting to present with a skill set or a sound that you've been working on, you want to maintain over the summer so they don't lose that. So these are the three areas that we use to consider whether or not someone would need an extension to their school year. And remember, we talked about how ESY, extended school year, is not just about summer, it's about other breaks too. It can be long breaks over Christmas. It could be the Easter break that's coming up. For some students, we may talk about they need a longer school day even. And that's all based on these three elements of regression, recoupment, and if it's significant, everybody loses a little and everybody takes a little while to get back. The question is how long and how much. if we're maintaining critical life skills, or if we're supporting emerging skills. Questions on ESY? All right. Hearing none, we will move on. So for today, let's see if I can just open this up a little bit more. Hang on. That's better. All right. So today, want to touch on a few things that I don't know if you've had the chance to consider very often, but stress is a part of everyone's life. The question is, how much stress are you experiencing? How do you handle it? I want to talk a little bit about anger occurring. Anger is unfortunately sometimes going to occur in the lives of all of us as professionals. We're going to talk about what happens just biologically that you don't have any really ability to stop, because it's what nature does when your body senses danger. And then just translating stress and high emotion, as another way to talk about anger, those high emotion points. I'm going to talk about ways to deal with that in the workplace. So first and foremost, I pulled this study, and this is a study by the University of Missouri that actually just has been out since 2018. And it was a pretty straightforward survey, just talking about how much stress are you experiencing in your job and how much are you coping, how well are you coping. What I really appreciated is that there is a specific data link to outcomes with your students. How much stress you're under can lead to poorer student outcomes, lower grades, more behavior problems. And so for me, I think that alone says it's important to talk about it in the element of what we're working with today. In the study, if educators said they had low levels of stress and high coping abilities, that was almost non-existent. Only 7% of the, I think it was 121 teachers surveyed in a Midwestern school reported themselves as having low levels of stress and high levels of coping. This is a big issue. We worry all the time about teachers, teacher retention, teacher burnout. I know you've heard those things. We worry when a significant percentage of young educators leave the classroom after their first, second, or third year. Those are the times when stress can be at their highest because you're learning a new vocation, you're getting comfortable with your colleagues, and every day is something new because it's a brand new environment, a brand new world for you. And it is probably one of the higher stress situations you're going to encounter. So I think the other thing that is a big takeaway is that a lot of teachers, when they're experiencing stress, they somehow think it's their fault. It's like, I shouldn't have this stress. I should just be coping with it. I should be able to handle it. It says something about my quality as an educator. Absolutely not. What it says is you have the need to have more coping, more self-care, so that you can become more resilient. You can withstand the times when stress is running high and you're being pulled at all these different ends. So some of the things that are important that teachers talk about is having better working conditions in classrooms, having more autonomy in the classroom, and having a voice in decision making. Working conditions in the classroom, you hear teachers talk about their class sizes. I have a teacher that's generally been so accepting of having practicum students, and this year she had to say, I'd love to, but I can't because her caseload doubled. So that's a working condition. You see teachers that are striking or protesting or advocating and showing their classrooms that have not enough textbooks. They have desks that are that are broken, and really sometimes even just really almost negligent situations that teachers are left to deal with because of fiscally related problems. Autonomy in the classroom, that really relates to do the leaders in your school, in your district, in your state acknowledge the importance of including educators in decision making, but also can they be allowed to make choices in their classroom? If everybody's told, this is the curriculum we use, and by week 2, you should be on page 121, and if you're not on 121, then you've got a problem. It doesn't give you that autonomy to say, well, my class needs to move at a little different pace because 50% of my students are English language learners, or I have 30% of my class that are on IEPs. So that's the kind of autonomy that teachers need. And then I was kind of leading into also the decision making. We've all been had things like done to us. Somebody makes a decision and says, here it is. Sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times in the professional world, we want to have the chance to have input. If it involves us, it's the nothing about us without us kind of thing. And sometimes in the attempt to push things along further, faster, farther, teachers don't always get the chance to have genuine voice. Sometimes there's a little lip service paid. But these are the kind of things that can build over time and can result in stress. And so you do want coping strategies. You do want self-care. And when you're out there looking for your first job, whatever it is, whether it's in a school, it's in a therapeutic setting, it's a hospital, it's a business, pay attention to the culture. If you can get a sense of it. Talk to people that work there. Is it a caring environment? Do people feel included and welcome? Do they feel like they have voice? Those things are really important. All right, this slide, and I know for Cassie it's not big enough, so I don't know if it'll let me change it. Hang on. I've got a screen running that lets me record it. I'm not going to read all these, but these are just stress coping strategies. You got to find what works for you, that's healthy for your body, healthy for your mind. And you guys know all this stuff, but it's just good reminders for you that your mental health is critical to being the best educator or therapist you can possibly be, whatever your chosen vocation is. And so these are just some ideas that I just throw out there for you. All right, we'll do this video real quick. This is the science of anger.
What comes with a $1 soft drink from McDonald's? $1 any size soft drink. Joy included.
Hey there, welcome to...
Just a second. I didn't want to do that. I was trying to make it louder. I'm probably gonna have to watch a movie again. So annoying. I'm gonna have to watch an ad. Sorry. Just a second. I just want to change the volume. It's not gonna let me. Hang on, 1 second. Nope, it won't play in that mode. All right, I'm just gonna play it. Hopefully you can hear it. Turn up your volume. Sorry, guys.
Hey there, welcome to Life Noggin. Have you ever been so angry that you start to relate to those cartoon characters who have steam coming out of their ears? Or maybe you feel like your blood is boiling beneath your skin. Even though you may know what the external cause of your anger is, what's actually going on inside your body when
I'm not hearing anything.
Imagine that you
No, I know that. That's why I've got the... You're just gonna have to listen.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Or possibly give them a not so nice hand gesture. Admit it, we've all done it before. Inside your brain, the amygdala, which responds to outside stimuli, processes the car cutting you off and coordinates the release of neurotransmitters called catecholamines. These cause you to feel a burst of energy preparing you for physical action. The hormones epinephrine and norepinephrine are also released, increasing your...
Oh, stop. Sorry. Just go. Go.
Your heart rate increases and your face may flush as the blood rushes to your extremities. If you have ever seen someone so angry that they turn red as a lobster, this is why. If you want to keep this anger at bay, you'll have to use your prefrontal cortex. You can think of this as the area that controls your judgment. And if you don't use your prefrontal cortex, you may act aggressively towards others. Take Phineas Gage as an example. In 1848, while at work, a tamping iron was shot through his left cheek and exited through the top of his head. Somehow he survived, but his frontal lobe was severely damaged. After his injury, he is said to have been fitful, irreverent, and had the animal passions of a strong man. Perhaps the damage to his frontal lobe destroyed his ability to control his behavior. He was not only a new man, but also one incapable of self-constraint. It's also important to note that constant chronic anger can greatly increase a person's chance of getting a heart disease like high blood pressure or heart attacks. Anger and the heart are very connected. This is because epinephrine and norepinephrine constrict blood vessels, making your heart pump harder. These two hormones also increase the amount of glucose and fatty acids in the blood. The increased levels can lead to damage in artery walls and speed up the process of atherosclerosis. When the fatty plaque builds up in the arteries, it narrows them and decreases the flow of oxygen-rich blood to the body. This can lead to a heart attack, stroke, or death. But fear not, there are healthy ways to control your anger, such as meditation, anger management therapy, exercise, or even just relaxing and doing something fun, like watching a few Life Noggin videos. So tell us, what is one thing that makes you angry, and what do you do to get over that feeling? Make sure you come back every Monday and Thursday for a brand new video. And if you want even more Life Noggin, check out these videos we did on the science of happiness and the science of depression. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Blocko, this has been Life Noggin, stay calm, and don't forget to keep on thinking.
Okay, so I'm sorry about, no, sorry about that. Just 1 second, we'll get back to it here. I don't know how to get some of that stuff not to show. It just takes a while. All right, so I think the big takeaway there with this particular quick video is just remembering that nature takes over. I mean, nature in our bodies knows when we sense that something is wrong, and so it responds in sort of just those very basic safety reasoning kind of goes out the door. It's like, okay, your brain goes, nope, we're in danger. We're gonna shoot some heavy duty chemicals out there, so our body reacts, and suddenly we're doing things that we don't even know are happening. And so the slides just kind of show you what happens with stress, what happens with anger. When you get angry, the hippocampus kind of just goes nuts because it's the one that says, we got to keep you safe. Your short-term memory, you don't even get to that because you have other things happening in your brain. If you've ever had an argument and then you think 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, I wish I'd said that. It's because that part of your brain wasn't really accessible to you while you were shooting all these different hormones through your body to try to react. You know that sometimes things are so intense, you cannot think reasonably. You know, people have road rage and they have situations where they become physical, and some of our young children have some challenges because they don't access the prefrontal cortex when they're experiencing this flood of emotions. When they get that stuff coming through the brain, we struggle to access the right kinds of our brain that keep us from, making these bad decisions. So, I guess, the point I'm trying to point out to you is, you don't always get the ability to make your body do what you want it to do. Sometimes it just takes over for you because stress and anger make different parts of your brain suddenly activate, and it does some things that you don't even know it's doing. Here's the rage stage. This is a rage stage that actually talks about what's happening with a kid when they're getting into a rage, a rumbling and rage stage, and then when they recover. This is you, the adult, when kids are going through that. So you are going through almost the exact same thing. Even though you're the adult and you're safe and you're fine, the fact that you're within the presence of somebody who's having this huge bunch of emotion here is going to make your body do the same thing as well. And so what's important to note is over here is this recovery phase. I didn't want to go to that slide yet. Why did all my slides suddenly change? With this recovery phase, this is where everything finally starts to settle down. But when you're in this state, oh my goodness, hang on. When you're in that state, you don't necessarily have all of your capacities to remember things, access things, be reasonable because you're in that moment with the child. And so that's why I encourage you to remember that when you go through tough things, you have a point where you need to take some self-care. Sometimes when kids go through these really difficult rages, like I know I shared a tough time with my daughter from about a week ago, and you go through it too, and you have to step back and let yourself kind of recalculate and bring everything back to the level so that you can progress, you can make good decisions. All right, so this is something that I had set up as more of a activity for us in class, but we can still do it. This is a really normal work-based scenario. You get to your classroom, it's 7:30 in the morning, your phone's ringing. You pick it up and somebody on the other end is just laying into you. They're using not good words, they're calling you names, et cetera, and they are fired up. They accuse you of not following the IEP, of sharing information that's confidential, that you were acting inappropriate at the last IEP meeting. I mean, it's accuse, name call. So, the question that I would like us to find a way to discuss right now, if I could stop changing slides, I'm going to take us back. Hang on. Is just yourself right now. If this were you and you just experienced this is your classroom, you walk in, you get treated to this, what are you feeling? What is your first step? What is your second step? Who do you tell? And who do you talk to? All right, so I'm going to switch it over. I'm going to stop sharing, stop presenting. And this is where I want you to unmute. Okay, and then the first question. What are you feeling? You just came into your classroom or your therapy room and you got this phone call. What are you thinking?
Well, did I actually do it or not?
That's not important at this point. What's important is that this parent thinks you did all these things.
Well,
Okay?
I'm very overwhelmed.
Yep.
Sleepy.
You're sleepy?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 7:30 in the morning or because it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
No, because it's 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it's a rude awakening. Yeah, it takes you from 0 to 60 miles an hour in your brain. So what do you do? What do you do first?
Maybe you could like,
That way.
Molly, you go first and then we'll have Lizzie.
I was thinking maybe like seeing if you could speak to them at a different time or have somebody else in the mix when you're talking to them, because the person on the phone arguing or like making all these assumptions about what was happening clearly is not in the right state of mind if they're calling names and stuff. So it's not appropriate to even try to calm them down.
Yeah, because they're what we just talked about, right? Their brain is out of control. They're not using their prefrontal cortex. They're not reasoning. They're just out for blood, right? Yep. So you say, sounds like you're really upset. Maybe we could talk at another time, right? Or you can come in and visit with me, and I can have my principal there. Yep.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Lizzie?
I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we schedule a meeting?
Yep. Something empathetic. I'm sorry you feel that way. How about you, Emily?
Probably the same thing. Like, just tell them like I hear your concerns and set up at a different time. I like that.
Yep. Is it tempting to be defensive?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. As soon as they say, you were on your phone throughout the whole meeting, you never paid attention to one thing we were doing, and you're like, what? No, I was on the computer, and you want to say that. I mean, I think that's our natural human defense, is to explain, to defend ourselves in a rational way. But in the state they're in, that's probably going to further inflate it, more than likely. Okay.
And everything that you're saying too, they're going to hear in their own way, and so they can totally twist your words when they're that upset.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. If you've ever had an argument with someone who's a significant other, you know exactly how that goes. It's like, that's not what I said. I said da 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 da. No, you said this. Yeah. and emotions run high. And so, yeah, that defensiveness it's natural. You want to go there, but you got to remember you will have time if you handle it, in a good method and very systematic way. So your phone is, you say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I hear what you're saying. Let's schedule a time when you can come in and we can talk more about this. So you get off the phone. Who do you tell?
People who are at the IEP meeting?
I
Maybe?
think you could, yep, because you're the case manager. So this child is going to be in your classroom probably in about 20 minutes. Who else who's probably the most important person, I would say, at this point?
Principal.
Yeah. Yeah. You want, if they're available, you want them to know that you've had this interaction, because sometimes they're not satisfied just with burning you up one side and down the next. They want to come in and now share with your boss so that they make sure your boss knows how bad you are. and the last thing your principal wants is to be caught off guard going, what's going on? And if you have the opportunity to just say, hey, I got a difficult phone call this morning from so-and-so, when you have time, can you stop down? At least then you've given them, kind of the high side. Hey, something's not right. And then everybody's just a little bit more, it's not necessarily that you want to be on guard, but you can be not caught off guard. And then you might be thinking, okay, this is what they're thinking. Why would they have that impression? Okay, so you tell the principal, and then I think it was, I can't remember who said the rest of the IEP team, but that's kind of getting into who would you go to next? Who else would you tell? And I would agree. Who said team?
I did.
Okay. And I 100% agree with that. I think because that person might go on a round robin of calling everybody, either way, they're all involved with that child in one way or another. They're providing a service, they're the regular classroom teacher, they're a counselor, and so they may have ideas, they may have needs that they can offer, but they're also potentially going to get caught up in this circle of misery if the parent decides to go dialing for dollars and bring another few folks into the fun and games. Okay, and then going to quick look at one thing real fast. What else did I ask? Yeah, no, I think we've covered that pretty well. That's not unusual. You will have a family or two who will get upset. I think it's a learned skill that you constantly want to practice, which is how to stay calm when someone is really aggressive with you, and try not to, lose that ability to just, think logically, rationally, and try to, talk them down off the ledge a little bit. It's those de-escalation techniques that I'm sure you've talked about in some of your classes on emotional and behavioral disturbances. It's the same process, which is not feeding into it. If you go high, they're going to go high. So you try to go low, you speak slow, you speak quiet. You don't have to agree with them, and you certainly don't have to be abused. You can always say, I understand you're very upset, but I don't need to, be called names. So why don't we just stop and we'll talk again when you have a little calmer approach to this. And sometimes that doesn't help at all, but you don't need to be on a phone call or in an interaction that's A, abusive, or B, unsafe, because those are the things that do contribute to even more stress in the workplace. Because once something like that's happened, it changes that relationship in a significant way, and moving back to a good relationship when you've had that kind of a interaction can be hard. Okay, so I'm gonna look at the last slide. I've shown it to you 3 times because I didn't mean to, but I'm just gonna read it. On the last slide, just reminding you, we will do a quiz on Friday. It's gonna cover IEP content, which is the rest of the IEP. Consideration of special factors, accommodations and modifications, placement decision-making, extended school year. It's also gonna cover holding IEP meetings and difficult situations. And we talked about holding IEP meetings. Again, that was a while back, but that was all about timelines, planning ahead. How do you get all the right people there? How do you set up your meeting? Everybody remember that conversation? And then also, if you go on to Moodle, The other thing I want to do on Friday is I want to look at other states' IEP forms, because now we've been all the way through the IEP. So instead of current events, don't worry about current events for Friday. I want you to look at the state IEPs I have out on Moodle and familiarize yourself with what they look like, because we're going to do a compare and contrast with the South Dakota form. Because I know that the likelihood of all of you ending up in South Dakota and working on these kind of forms is very minimal, and I want you to have exposure to what some other states are using. Okay, so with that, I think, let me just double check one more thing. Oh, we're going to talk about transition next. That will be next week. We're going to cover the transition requirements for kids that are age 16 and older in the IEP. And then we're going to be butting right up against Easter. And after Easter, we will start working on our group projects. And I shouldn't say they're group projects, because anyone is certainly able to just do their project by themselves. Okay. What questions do you have before we wrap? Okay, that's it. Thanks. I'm sorry we had to meet this way, but I really appreciate it. And I will hopefully, fingers crossed, see you on Friday.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.